So what is going on, Kingdom Hearts fans? It's your boy Amaziah here, and Nomura was in an interview in which he talked about the state of the Kingdom Hearts series, of course its storylines, its progression, and how he personally feels about the progression and whether or not it makes sense to him as well. So I'm going to be reading you guys these quotes from, of course, KH Insider, and I'm going to give my thoughts on them as I always do. So let's go ahead and get right into them. So the first thing he had to say was, I do have a general storyline in my head. What is the most confusing is that because there are so many characters in this storyline now, it's hard to keep track of who actually met who already. I'm always like, okay, so who knows who in this situation and who's meeting this person for the first time? And that always gets really confusing. So this is something that we kind of do come across when it comes to like writing and stuff, and obviously when it comes to stories. I mean, does it give it a pass? Because of course it could be confusing to have like over 50 something characters and not know who has already met who. No, because of course when you start to think about a continuity, you start to think about, of course, if characters have had interactions and stuff, there should be some kind of growth that comes from interactions with very important characters. As we know, each of the 13 Seekers of Darkness, all have had some kind of tie-in with Sora, Riku, and Kairi, or one of the sorts and stuff. So definitely, we would love for those connections to be actually realized and to still feel connected. We know that Kairi met Aqua when she was younger, so definitely seeing Aqua in the position that she's in now, I definitely would love to see something like that go down with Kairi, or of course have Aqua actually meet Kairi again and then remember how warm of course she was and how pure she was, and definitely to see how older she's become and see that with all of her efforts, something good did come out of it. So definitely stuff like that is, going to be something that I want to see from the story. I'm pretty sure it's something that you guys want to see from the story as well. He was also asked whether or not he, of course, still feels like Sora is like a son to him, as this is something that he expressed in the very early points of the Kingdom Hearts series' conception. So let's go ahead and get into that as well. It says, I actually don't sympathize or empathize with Sora at all, Nomura says. Instead, he relates to the game's mysterious villain Xehanort or likely Ansem, anyone who's fallen prey to their dark natures. I think I'm closer to those characters. So Sora is like my enemy. How I always think of him is I would unleash my attacks on him, and then I draw in a way that I think he will be able to make a comeback at me. In that sense, I really think that Sora is just like an opposition personality character to who I am. Now, this is a very interesting take of course, a main character. Now, when you dealt with a main character and you start to think critically of them, of course, you start to think about like, I mean, I used to want to write a story, a manga and stuff, but when you start to think about like these characters and how they actually deal with each individual situation, I feel like the reason why he doesn't like Sora could potentially be that he's never had Sora be in between a rock and a hard spot. There's always been certain situations that Sora himself has had to deal with, but when it comes to a rock and a hard spot, give me one true, real defining moment in which, of course, we've had Sora actually sit there and have to contemplate everything that he knows, everything that he thinks he knows, and of course, what progression has come of that. We had a little bit of that in Dream Drop Distance, but for some reason, of course, people hate Dream Drop Distance for that reason, but I personally loved it because as someone who came into the series with 305 days over 2 and seeing all of these characters essentially suffer because of the fact that they aren't Sora, it kind of made me feel like, of course, Sora was this motherfucker who was just put on a pedestal, and then when I got to try recode it, I was like, well, yeah, this is pretty fun. I mean, I do like the data Sora. He's pretty cool. And then, of course, when we got to Dream Drop Distance and I started to see, like, Sora actually having these negative qualities, like always believing that the best can come out of any situation and how that led to him getting trapped in, of course, the nightmares, definitely I felt like that was something that was pretty cool. So let's go ahead and get into the final part here. So pretty much he starts to talk about expectations as he was asked about, like, how does he feel or how has it been, dealing with the expectations of fans and of course the expectations of himself when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3. This is the game he wants to be his magnum opus within the series up to this point. So let's go ahead and get into that. He says, the fan expectations and excitement towards Kingdom Hearts 3 was much more than I had expected. I actually did feel a little pressurized for the first time pretty much in my life, but the best way to get rid of feeling pressurized is to just have confidence in yourself that what you're making is good. Right now, he says he feels pretty good about where the game is headed. I really have confidence in Kingdom Hearts 3 that it is a good game. I was really able to get rid of that pressure that I was feeling. And this is something that I feel like is damn good to hear from Tetsuya Nomura. Some people can see this and say, oh, and then we have people in the community just being so toxic. Why are you so mean to Tetsuya Nomura? But putting pressure on Tetsuya Nomura to understand the position that he's in when it comes to this game and everything that it could do for the potential series. Like, you gotta admit it to yourself, bro. If Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't answer a lot of the plot lines, a lot of the stories and stuff that Kingdom Hearts has, we'll be going into the next saga with the exact same questions, the exact same stories, of course, and the exact same character developments. So definitely having that pressure on him to understand where he is now with this, and knowing that, of course, fans have these expectations of him, it makes him think. It makes him go back, reevaluate all of these different situations. And this is why, of course, we're getting things like him admitting that sometimes he gets confused too about the story, and sometimes he really needs to look over the story again and make sure that he knows where certain characters fit into certain places, and of course, who knows who, where's the connections at. That's a good thing, because it pretty much is going to lead to some better situations, some better, more fleshed out, of course, stories, through to the fact that, of course, he has to go back and look at the story again. I think that's damn good. Hearing that, of course, he knows about fan expectations and how he felt pressurized, and the only way he got over it was to pretty much do his best and feel like he's made something good. Of course, we always have the director's intent, the director's, of course, vision. So, of course, if it conflicts with his vision, he could have potentially went in the way of course, sticking to his vision and going 100% with that. But feeling that pressure, and of course, knowing that he had to reevaluate things, and being able to be a man and admit that sometimes he doesn't know what's going on, this is going to lead to a far better story within Kingdom Hearts 3 if he took those fan expectations and, of course, those fan worries, and, of course, applied them to what he was writing for the story, or, of course, where the writers have put the story. Of course, we know Kingdom Hearts does have like some side writers or some full-time writers and stuff, with some games being fully written by other people. But of course, Tetsuya Nomura is the person who all of that stuff has to come across. And of course, he's wrote some stories within the Kingdom Hearts series himself. If I'm not mistaken, Birth by Sleep, 305 Days Over 2, and Recoded are all stories that he personally wrote. I'm not sure about Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. I think there were either side writers for those two games, or of course, there are dedicated writers, which were the writers of the actual games. And of course, Tetsuya Nomura himself does actually play a role in that. And then with this pressure, he actually knows that he has to be looking out for these things. And I'm pretty sure this is why we're hearing about, like, the video series that's going to come, that's going to explain a lot about Kingdom Hearts on an official level. It's always cool to have like a fan who's really been looking into this, of course, explain it to you. But if you can explain it on an official level, that pretty much means that somebody, or Tetsuya Nomura himself, had to reevaluate this whole story. And reevaluating this whole story, even if he has to make some retcons to make the story better, of course, he can make those changes now. He can, mold the story in a way that when we go forward, everything should make perfect sense. And I feel like that's good. A lot of people are going to take this and run with it and spin it like as if he's saying that, the community high expectations are just toxic. It makes him feel bad. But this is what you should expect from someone who has this level of power. Like I said, if Kingdom Hearts 3 winds up being bad when it comes to the progression side of the plot and the characters, we are going to be moving into the next saga with the exact same questions, instead of having new questions that can be answered by, of course, the wit, the smarts, and the details of new characters, the new villain, the next villain. If the next villain is the Master of Masters, he pretty much could bring about the question of all the creation and stuff, and then Sora has to question whether or not the world is worth saving. All of those things, versus right now, what we have is like pretty much the question of, is darkness a bad thing for the universe? The next question could be, is the universe worth saving? But if we don't go forward with the story that we have now and the character that we have now, and of course they don't change or they don't come to any answers or conclusions to their personal questions, then of course we have the same questions that will need to be answered in the next saga. But of course, Tetsuya Nomura having this pressure and going over it now, definitely I would love to see some better characters, and of course see the story be told in a far better light with this pressure on Tetsuya Nomura. So let me know how you guys feel about this stuff. Are you worried that Tetsuya Nomura doesn't, of course, always know what's going on? And how do you think he feels about Sora? How do you think the way he feels about Sora will affect what we can actually see within Kingdom Hearts 3? I think that is going to lead to some very good situations. We've already seen that Sora will pretty much have like a real, like kind of realistic reaction to certain things, like of course with Larxene telling him about how Elsa, which side would she choose, the light or the darkness, she wants to see for herself, and of course she says it with so much amusement that it pisses Sora off. So definitely he will be having some more realistic interactions with the characters, and I can't wait to see exactly where Tetsuya Nomura leaves all of this off with at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So thank you guys for tuning into the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Being Boy Amaziah. Don't forget to do a little A-class gaming, and everything you do, don't forget to keep it A-class, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace the heck out.
What's left of me?